Welcome everyone to the Memento Mori Fight Club. My name is Fidel.
And my name is Mary, and we're so excited to have you guys join us for this episode. We have our good friends with us, Veronica and Enrique Garcia, and we're just going to continue talking about miscarriage and infant loss and have them on to kind of share their stories with us. So, Enrique, Veronica, if y'all could just kind of give us a little background, how long have you been married? How many kids have you had? Just things like that.
The
Sure.
general.
Yeah, we're happy to be here. Thanks for reaching out to us. My name's Enrique. My wife's name's Veronica. We met nearly 5 years ago. Been married now for 23. We actually got a heads up that we were going to be asked this, so I know it was 23 years and 3 months ago.
Very nice.
Very specific.
Yeah, myself in trouble. And yeah, met in college, actually at St. Mary's in College Station. And at the time, we were both in slightly different stages of our life. We were both discerning what vocation the Lord had in mind for us, and did not imagine that we would meet our bride to be necessarily when we did. And it was soon thereafter that we knew we were called to see where the Lord would lead us together as one. And it wasn't long before after that we were married, and then we were looking forward to start a family. And that didn't quite go as we necessarily would have liked it to go for a few years. And then here we are 23 years later with 8 boys and 2 girls, and Marianita, our 11th, that's in heaven waiting for us, God willing. And that's what brings us here today.
Yeah. And so which pregnancy was, or I guess
Yeah.
what's the word? What in the order?
Yeah. So we have, 4 boys and then a girl and then 2 boys, and Mariana would have been number 8 at the time, right? Yeah. It would have been the 8th pregnancy. I mean, I had some other carriages, but nothing like this. This was my first. They were very, very early miscarriages that I had before that.
Okay. How far along were you on this one?
With this one, when I found out when she was diagnosed with trisomy 18, that's what ended up taking her life, I guess. It was actually very early. It was about 10 weeks, because we just had blood work done. And really, it wasn't to find out, if there was some chromosomal disorder. It was to find out gender, because I get pregnant and I want to know, like, the next day, is it a boy or girl? Just because
So you can get things ready.
Exactly. So we had at that point just one daughter. She was 5 at the time, and she was very much hoping for a sister. And so, yeah, it was very early on. It was at 10 weeks when we found out.
And how long did the pregnancy last? How long were you able to carry her?
Fortunately, it was full-term pregnancy, and I was able to give birth, and she lived for a little over a day. Like, she was born at noon on Thursday, and she passed away like Friday around 4 p.m. So yeah, it was a little over a full day.
And how long ago was this?
This was so she was born November 30th. So in November, she would have been 7 years old.
7 years. Okay.
Yeah. Making her first communion soon.
Oh yeah, that's
awesome.
She made it a long time ago.
She what?
I said she made her.
Oh, she made communion. She did. She did make her first communion a long time ago.
So when you guys think about that moment, I'm sure it wasn't easy, but what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Which moment? Like when we first found out?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, okay. Yeah. Because it was really early. So I was telling Enrique, just trying to recall, our plan was to have a natural birth at a birthing center. So there were some midwives that did the blood work and everything. And what's weird is I'd had this blood work done with other pregnancies, and it didn't seem to take as long. Like, it was taking longer than normal to get the results. And so I called up the midwife, and she said, yeah, we're still waiting. And a few days later, she called me back, and I was just thinking she was going to say, okay, like, well, do you want me to tell you now, or do you want to come in? But she didn't really give me that choice. She said, yeah, well, we've got the results, but we'd like you to come in and meet us, and we'll tell you there. And I'm like, okay. So I didn't think much about it, and I was super excited. And I got in the car, and as I was driving to the birthing center, it's almost like God just prepped me. And there was a little flash in my mind that said, there could be something wrong. And it was kind of like, it was interesting because I didn't really think much about it. But now looking back, I remember that happening because when I went with the midwives, there were two of them, and they wanted me to sit down, and they said, well, and they're like, it's a girl. And I was elated because obviously we were hoping for a little girl, from a sister for my daughter. But the way they said it, they were just, very somber. And I was like, they're like, but, the results came back. There's, like it's saying a 99% chance that she has trisomy 18, which is a chromosomal disorder. But immediately it was interesting because I felt God's peace the moment they said it. And it was the midwives that were just beside themselves. Like, it was a really hard thing for them to share with me. And so I said, okay. And they're like, this isn't 100%, it's not a diagnosis. There's still, things that can be done to really confirm. But, I knew, because I've done this enough. And even though I wasn't doing this test to find out if there was something wrong, I had heard enough about these kinds of blood tests and their accuracy. So it wasn't like I was thinking, oh yeah, this is probably wrong. But needless to say, thanks be to God, it was heavy, but there was an underlying peace. So sorry, that was a long answer to your question.
No,
No,
that's great.
that's great. Yeah.
Enrique, how did you process that, or what was your initial, I guess, reaction?
My initial reaction, I don't remember the exact moment when I was told, but I think in the first few days, it was one where I was uneducated, so I didn't know what it might mean. I was looking forward to learning more about what it was. I probably had more concern for Veronica than I had for Mariana at the time, because I knew it would be weighing, or it could be weighing heavy on her. I was also ready for whatever might come. Probably very similar to Veronica. We were fortunate enough to have gone through other trials in our marriage earlier when we were trying to have children and couldn't. And I think we had grown very close to each other in a way, and very patient and open to whatever the good Lord had in mind. He had already surprised us in so many ways, in a positive way, that I don't think we had a loss of peace. I think there was just that natural, wow,
What's going to happen?
What's going to happen? What's next? I can't see.
Yeah.
I'm blind, but we've been here before. And there is, I think initially there was definitely just a natural desire to find a way through it. Like, okay, Lord, is there a way we can make this cup pass if this doesn't have to look like what I'm hearing it might look like? I think that was natural. It wasn't out of desperation. It was just, okay, how much hope do I have here? And is it a lot? And how can I maximize that hope? And again, just thinking about my wife and what she might be going through and how I can be there. Yeah.
And you said you'll have, your four other kids, well, your four boys and then your other daughter at this point. So did y'all tell them, like, kind of say, like, we're having a girl, this is what's going
Yeah.
on?
So I had already planned because whenever we find out gender, at that time we've always done like a cake, and it's funny because we don't even have the, like, some people do the blue and the pink. I just say, I'm like, well, we're gonna reveal today, so we do chocolate or vanilla, like whatever's ready at the store, and we say, okay, if it's a boy, it's chocolate, if it's a girl, it's vanilla, right? So I told Enrique, I said, because I called him, he was at work when I found this out, and I told him. And I remember it was a Friday because our parish had adoration, and my inclination was first thing, just go to the Lord right after finding out. So I called him and I went to adoration, and I just, I said, okay, Lord, here we go. But after that, I went to the store to get the cake. Like, we weren't going to change anything as far as telling the boys, because we still wanted to rejoice that the Lord had given life, right? Like, and
Yeah,
we
absolutely.
knew we had a daughter. Like, this was amazing. And so there was still that hope of, like, we have a daughter, And so I asked him, I said, what do you think? Do we do this? Is it kind of appropriate? And he said, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. And so we did. It was still very exciting. I still have, we took video of it. And so we did the cake, and the kids were super excited. And basically we didn't hold back. We said, this is awesome. This is a gift. This is beautiful. But we also found this information out. And so, of course, the kids had a bunch of questions, and they're all different ages. I think our oldest at the time would have been 11 or 12.
Mhm.
And then so Miriam at the time was 5, but then we still had 2 younger boys. Pio and Tobias were 2, was the youngest. Yeah. So they obviously weren't going to understand, but they all took it, I think kids pick up on their parents. They saw that we weren't fretting and scared, but we were rejoicing. And so they were just like, okay, well, they had questions, but so did we.
Yeah,
So-
naturally.
So yeah, I think they just kind of followed our lead and we're like, okay, let's see what's going to happen. So
Yeah, it's like resignation to the will of God.
that's what we
Essentially.
tried to do. Yeah, that's what we
Yeah.
tried.
It seems like the Lord gave you guys the grace to be united in that resignation, like as a family, like for you, Veronica, and for you, Enrique, like it was everyone just was able to get
Very,
that from the Lord.
very
So
grateful for that. Very grateful because yeah, you do hear stories of just people react differently and then it can cause more tension in the marriage because one person maybe takes it harder than the other, or there's just misunderstandings, or yeah, no, fortunately I never felt that. I felt like we talked about things and I think we were just pretty much aligned on, okay, this is God's will. And, if he wants to heal her, he obviously can, he's more than welcome to. We
Yeah.
really have a daughter and we want to see her grow up and live here. But at the same time, if that's not his will, then like we need to get on board and embrace what he's asking us to, because it's obviously his will is greater and than what we could ever imagine or hope for, what we can't see. So let's try our best to follow him in that.
yeah, that's
That's
beautiful.
cute. So then after, can y'all tell us just like what happened? A lot of people just, I mean, myself, I don't know. So what happens after you deliver the baby? You're at the hospital or you're at the birth center when you deliver
Yeah,
her?
so the midwives immediately said, I'm sorry, like because this is high risk, like we can't take you here. So they did refer us to a doctor. And this at the time we were living in Tyler, a smaller town. So it wasn't like we were here in Houston where there's more, I guess, medical, whatever you want to call it, professional. But no, the doctor we had was amazing.
Super good.
He was really, really good. I was
Yeah.
very grateful for him. And so yeah, we were at a hospital and he was very what's the word? Just supportive and
Yeah, we didn't talk to him that long, but wow, what a beautiful way he introduced us to one, what her condition was. He was empathetic, he was extremely
Mhm.
knowledgeable, he was kind, gentle, and he had this like calm joy about him
Mhm.
that superseded any kind of tragic event that he probably came across all the time in the hospital. And he basically said, "Hey, look, here's the situation, and you have a choice of how you want to handle this time as Marianita develops in the womb, and as you prepare, she may or may not make it full term. She may or may not be born. She may not be survive the birth, but what an opportunity you have to go through this together with her and be grateful for what you do have. I can't remember the exact
Yeah,
words,
no,
but
he
that's
was
what I
just
walked away
yeah, he was really encouraging. And then later I found out these are things you don't think about because we just take for granted. It would never ever cross our minds to abortion is just not it's just not even on the radar. But later talking to other people, I have a friend who said, "Oh my goodness, I have this friend who had this." And all these doctors, the first thing they say is like, "Well, would you like to terminate?" And so I took it for granted that we weren't even ever approached with that kind of mentality.
Mm.
And my friend that was telling me that, she's like, "Oh no, that's very common here." I was like, "Oh my goodness." So very grateful. We never had to deal with any of that kind of stuff. And yeah, very supportive doctor. But he told me, well, as later, because it was still really early, but then later we went to a specialist in Dallas and they did the full scan at 20 weeks. That pretty much confirmed it because all the signs were there as far as at 20 weeks, she was measuring like 16 weeks. They're smaller. She had the clenched fist. She had the cleft lip. Like there were certain things, but really I mean, with this kind of a diagnosis, there could be all sorts of things as far as like the clenched fist and the cleft lip. That's just, what's the word I'm looking for? Superficial. Yeah, like the organs and things, there could be really, really serious, which is why a lot of the babies are miscarried. They don't even make it to birth. But her situation, it was still serious. She had what's called hypoplastic left heart, I think is what it's called. So it had to do with her heart. And when the doctor found that out, he told me, he didn't tell me at the time, but then later, he really didn't think that she was going to make it to birth. And so
Yeah.
he was very, very grateful at the end. And if she did, he wasn't sure if she was going to make it through the labor process. So,
Yeah.
but she did.
Yeah. And I think it wasn't too, I guess, far into the pregnancy after we found out that we both found that in our prayer life, we were more focused on kind of uniting ourselves maybe with Marianita and God's will.
Mhm.
We didn't have this innate, strong desire to pray for her healing, although we would have welcomed it. It was an interesting, just natural evolution where our prayer life was really more just in awe of life and of the fact that we were married on the feast of the Sacred Heart, and that it was probably her heart that was going to give out, probably soon after she died. She was born, if she made it, and really just uniting ourselves to her and in her heart situation, and then our Lord's Sacred Heart. And that was really, if you had to summarize our faith life during that time and our prayer life, it was really focused on that.
That and trust. That was the biggest thing is trusting, because there were so many constant like things that would pop in your head, like, well, what if, or I'm not sure if she's moving. There was a couple times that I went and I had a Doppler, and and I would listen to her heart, and I could easily always find it, and I couldn't. And this was before you could feel her moving. I think this was maybe 13 weeks or something. And I mean, I looked and I was so nervous in the middle. I said, okay, well, just come in, and I remember driving, and I mean, she found it right away. But it was like little things like that where it's just constant, like, okay, Lord, this could be it. This may be it. There were several times like, this may be it. Okay, this may be it. And a constant trying to just surrender over and over and over, because it wasn't just like, it was a daily surrender throughout the pregnancy, because we didn't know. And it's hindsight's 2020, right? Because you look now and you're like, oh wow, that was so peaceful and beautiful. But then like, oh yeah, no, I remember going through that and that, and all the questions, and just the trust, the blind trust of like, okay, Lord, where are you going to take us? Give us the strength.
And just the day to day not knowing.
Day to day.
Is this the last day? Is that, I can imagine that's like so many questions. So you go through the delivery, you have her, y'all got to stay with her in the hospital that whole time.
So we were fortunate, because I typically have my babies at a birthing center or naturally. We're used to just like having the baby and a few hours later being home. That's not typical hospital policy, but the staff there knew our situation, and they're very gracious, and they knew like, okay, there's nothing we can do for you here. So that they weren't as strict typically as they are, and they let us sneak her out. I guess she was born.
We literally put her under Veronica's blouse.
She was teeny. She was only 3 pounds.
She's like, look, we're not supposed to do this, but we're just going to hide her under your blouse, and you're going to go in a wheelchair. We'll let you go home and just hug and love on your daughter until she passes. And that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, because she was born at noon, and I remember at 7 p.m. already being at home. And I took it for granted. I just had this feeling like, I don't know, it didn't even occur to me that she could pass in the middle of the night. And I remember, I had her through the night. I had a full night with my baby. And then I remember that early in the morning, one of the boys, I can't remember who, came in. And the first thing they asked is she still alive? And I was just like, oh my goodness. Like, I never even thought she could have passed, right? But that they were thinking that. And I was like, yes, she is. And I was like, wow, Lord, like he let me just enjoy her, like he didn't give me that fret. Like, am I going to lose her? I got to really enjoy her as my little baby at home, like my other babies I had, right? Yeah. And then it progressed that morning.
We had family pictures.
Yeah, we did. We had a kind woman who came to our house and did like a photo shoot, and
she devotes her time to do this for children that are babies that are fatally, challenged with some fatal.
She came to our home and did some pictures. So we got a little photo shoot that morning, and then my parents came, and my sister, your brother, and our sister-in-law came, and we were just there at the house, just kind of enjoying our time. And then it was about,
I would say for 36 hours, there wasn't a moment somebody wasn't holding
her. Yeah, she was held,
including our daughter and our boys. And I was so grateful. I was telling Veronica, I was so grateful that our children got to experience, just the beauty and the frailty of life. And I wanted them to experience that, because otherwise I think we could have gotten home from the hospital and she would have passed, and they wouldn't have gotten to know their sister. So we were blessed
Yes.
with that grace. Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Well,
so
and then it was interesting because we have video when she was born at the hospital, and I had some water from Lourdes that he baptized her with. And it's funny because in the video you can see the doctor's there. He's like, there is a priest who, we can call him. And he's like, and I baptized. I mean, he didn't even wait, because I was telling him that, I was never throughout the pregnancy like, Lord, please heal her, please heal her, please heal her, give her to us whole. But I did plead incessantly. I said, Lord, please let her be born. Let us hold her, let her be baptized. That was my one. I'm like, you can take her. I'm like, let her be baptized. That just was a very strong desire he placed in my heart. And so it was beautiful to see that he did answer that prayer.
Yeah. So were y'all able to like bury her, or what was the process that happened after she passed? Or how do you handle that with an infant?
Yeah, well, our pastor there, let's see, it was November 30th she was born. She passed away December 1st, first Friday. Sacred Heart.
Of course, Sacred Heart. Why not? Sacred Heart.
Right, why not? And then I remember too, because Fridays is when our parish has adoration. I was taken back to like when I first had that diagnosis, going into adoration. And before, who is it that comes to take their little bodies? I don't know the word for when they came Friday after that afternoon.
Yeah.
But first we took the whole family. We went to adoration with her after she had passed.
Yeah.
And
we
gave
took her
her
with us.
we took her with us. Yeah, we took her with us and we prayed the rosary.
Beautiful.
And then we came home, and at that point, whoever is that comes and takes their little bodies, they took her. And I remember wanting her buried on the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. She was Our Lady's. So December 12th. And we at the time in Tyler, we had property of about 10 acres. We had her cremated because that's the only way legally we knew we were going to be able to remove the remains and later have them somewhere else. So yeah, that's how that kind of came to be. But I mean, very blessed. It was actually a beautiful, I guess, I don't even know what you call it technically. It's not a funeral mass, but because the priest said, we can't wear black like in this occasion.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and so he's like, we can't, like,
He
we
said,
will
in this
stay here.
case,
In this
you have
case,
a-
this is
you have a
not-
saint
we're not
who
praying for the repose of her soul.
No.
So yeah, I was telling Enrique how for her funeral, it was the Feast of Our Lady a few days before, maybe like, I don't know, because it was December 1st. It was just, I had 12 days, right? One night I woke up in the middle of the night, who knows where, and I just had this image or inspiration coming to me. I was like, I would like to have a rosary, like a balloon rosary, released at her funeral. I'm like, I don't even know where this, because it's not like I've ever seen anything like it, but the thought came to me. So of course I Google search balloon rosary, and I had seen these different images, and we ended up having on our farm, all these children were there, and we had these we made a rosary and filled all the balloons with helium. And so all the kids, it was a beautiful pink and white rosary, and with a cross and everything. And we didn't even know if it was going to work, but the kids released it, and it was beautiful. It just flew up into the air, a beautiful rosary in honor of Our Lady, and just in thanksgiving for her life and Our Lady's role in that. So that was cool.
That's so awesome. Did y'all get pictures of that?
We do. We have video. I'll have to send it to you.
Yeah, send me
I
all
would
the
love,
things.
yeah, I would
Yeah,
love
it's
to see
pretty,
it.
it's pretty cool. It's pretty
pretty
neat.
amazing.
It's
Yeah,
pretty amazing. I was like, I hope this works, and it did. It was beautiful. It was a neat
Yeah.
tribute.
So
to her.
when y'all moved from Tyler, y'all were able to take her with you?
Yes.
So is
we
she there
actually,
in Houston with y'all?
she is not yet. She will be. She's actually, my parents have 160 acres in Hyco, so she's currently there. And we are in the process of building a small chapel. Where we are now, we have 35 acres. So the intent is to have her little cemetery plot here next to the chapel. But we didn't want to move until we have that kind of all set up and ready. So
Yeah.
But I find that beautiful that you take her with you everywhere you go. So
yes. Oh, I have to share this story, because one of the things that's so beautiful about this is that we have our own little patron saint for our family, right? We have a daughter that we can know with certainty is in heaven. As time passed, I was like, oh my goodness, I kicked myself that I didn't, like, she was born with a bunch of hair, like all of our babies are. And I just was like, why did I not keep like some of her hair as like little relics, right? Like for our family. Just like, why did that not occur to me? And I was just like bummed, and I just like moved on. And I don't know, like, gosh, 4 or 5 years passed, and we were already in Midland. And I opened up this trunk. I was going through some stuff and trying to organize, and I came across where we had stored her, like the only little outfit she wore, and it had like a little bonnet. And when I saw that bonnet, I was like, oh my goodness, that's going to be full of her hair. I just know it. I just knew instantaneously. And I opened up the bonnet and it was full of her little hair. Like that. And I was like, oh, goodness. So we have all these little reliquaries now for first class relics of our daughter, so that all our kids can have their sister, and in this beautiful way. So yeah, that was such a gift.
Such an awesome story.
A little reliquary. We do have a lot. And Santiago just finished. He's like, Mom, when are we? Because I bought a ton and I just never got to it, but he took care of it. So
This is just blowing my mind.
all
There you
right.
go. Yeah. Yeah. One of the other things, Mary, that what became pretty clear to us during this experience was how hard this can be on the people around you that aren't in control they're not the ones directly affected by it, and it's very easy for them to feel like just some desperation. Really, you're people that are really, really close to us, whether it's family members or otherwise, and because they feel helpless, like there's no way they don't know what to do, and there's nothing they can do to help, and they're imagining how much you might be suffering, and it can be, in some ways, it can be tougher for them than it is for the folks that are affected directly. It certainly was that was the case with us.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, it's just something to keep in mind, and it's good to pray for them. And then there's times when we find ourselves in that situation where we're not directly affected, and we're called to have hope, and we're called to remind ourselves that that the Lord has a plan, and that He does offer His grace and peace to those that are directly affected by tragedy, and we need not be scandalized by despair.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big message that we want to give people through this podcast, is that you're not alone and that there's hope. And so y'all's witness to this, with sharing this story of your daughter with us, is just such a ray of hope, I think, that people can look to and realize that these things happen, but the Lord is with you through them, that you can have peace through them, that you can rejoice in them. And it says, like, what is that verse, St. Paul? I'm terrible. Like, rejoice in affliction, be patient in hope, or things like that. And it's just like, what does that mean? And y'all essentially shared that story. That's what this is, and it is possible.
It was beautiful that He granted you guys that grace to do it, and to do it together as a family. I think that's that unity that I see in what you guys are sharing with us right now. I think that's I find that very beautiful. I think it's natural that we ask people, like, okay, like, how did other people who are close to you help you in this situation? But I think in this case, it's like you guys were able to help them in that grieving process, even though you guys were the ones directly affected by it.
For us, a lot of our grieving really happened ahead of time, and we were blessed to know what was likely to happen. It wasn't a tragic, unexpected, singular moment. And so the good Lord was extremely gentle with us.
That's where I feel the gentleness came in. Yeah,
so
for sure.
Yeah, we pray for those families that don't have that situation, and that they have a tragic event that's thrust on them suddenly. But I also know that the good Lord provides grace and peace where you would not expect it.
Here's a quote from St. Paul to Philippians that I was just reading today. And I don't know if this is what you're referring to, Mary. It says, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let all men know your forbearance. The Lord is at hand. Have no anxiety about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will keep your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Yeah.
Amen. Thank you for finding that for us.
Yeah, well, I didn't find it. I'm like, it's in my Kindle here, like, because I just read it like before we came up here, so that probably wasn't by accident.
Yeah.
You, Jesus. Yeah.
Yep. And
So
for any of
some
your listeners, if they've got somebody in mind that's got a hard heart, reach out to Saint Marianita and ask her for your prayers, because I have no doubt that she's got a special place in her prayers for those with hard hearts.
beautiful.
It's
And
beautiful.
you had alluded, Enrique, you said y'all had been through some things earlier in your marriage that kind of helped prepare you guys for this moment. Not necessarily that I want to get into what those were, but what advice would you have just for couples that maybe they haven't experienced anything like this, but just to be in a place in their marriage where they can be more united and closer and just have that solid foundation with the Lord. So when trials do come, which they will come, they
Mhm.
can be in a place where they're strong together.
You know, we had a priest that Father David, who's now a bishop in Oklahoma. I remember him telling us as we were getting prepared to marry, to not to ensure you don't get to a point in your marriage where you can't look at each other's in the eyes. And there's obviously moments when it's hard to look at your spouse in the eye, either because you're ashamed or because you're angry or upset or whatever it might be. And I've never forgotten that advice from him, is when you find yourself in that situation where you're having a hard time looking at your spouse in the eye, there's probably something in your heart that you need to change. Certainly something we'll be working on for the rest of our lives, and that would be the advice I would give a young couple.
Thank you for that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. What
Um,
about you, Veronica?
Oh my goodness. What advice would I give? Remember your vows, and what is it, through for better, for worse, for
Sickness and
in
health.
health. Yeah. It's like the Lord is going to help you, and ask for that sacramental grace of your marriage, right? Like the grace that he gives for whatever may come. And don't become complacent. Like we think, you get married and it's like, oh, we love each other, but like we're called to continue to grow and mature in that love. And so, yeah, keep looking for ways to love your spouse more and more, so that, when difficulties do come, you have that base and that foundation, and the desire to keep loving more.
Praise
Thank
God. Thank you, guys. Yeah, this was
Yeah,
good.
y'all, it's so beautiful memories, and I'd already started to forget some
Yeah,
stuff.
well,
Thank y'all for bringing this back up for us, because
yeah, it is crazy, because I remember
yeah.
thinking when you said that, I'm like, okay, let's sit down, because I'm going to be fun. I don't remember. My memory's horrible as it is, and then just trying to
Yeah.
think about
I
how.
told Veronica I'd rather not know the questions, and she goes,
No, because I'm going to be fumbling.
no, because we're not going to remember. And I was like, yeah, you're
Yeah,
right.
at the time we're
You're
going to be
right.
like, wait, how did it happen, or what?
Yeah,
I don't remember this exactly, which is crazy.
so
But
that's good. I'm glad. Thank you so much for helping us remember that part of. Wow, there's so many
so many
beautiful
little
things that we
things.
forget. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things, and I'm wondering why you said this, but when he was saying, like, if any of your listeners have hard hearts, because we always refer to her heart, and that was her condition, is during the pregnancy, I did take a special trip up to the Shrine of Divine Mercy,
Mhm.
In
because
Stockbridge?
I'm sorry.
In Stockbridge?
Yes, Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And went up there, and Enrique stayed home with the kids, but I didn't want to go by myself. I was like, it was August. She was born. So I don't know how many months pregnant. And my dad, I asked him to come with me on the trip. And my parents both fell away from the church and hadn't been practicing the faith, even though I have a brother that's a priest, and we've been practicing the faith for quite a while. So I asked him to come to accompany me, and we went to a healing mass up there, and then came back. And when we came back, my father started going to mass again after having gone up there. I don't know what the Lord did or how that all happened, but he hadn't been going to mass. And so, like, that trip wouldn't have happened without my daughter in the womb, right? Like that, just the way we just, I would have liked to make that trip, but that was a very specific trip made because of the situation we were in. So we talk about looking at like all of, I mean, that's one thing that I can see, right? But there's so many things we can't see that the Lord is working behind the scenes. And so, yeah,
That's beautiful.
faith,
Praise
yeah.
God.
So maybe one last question, just because you said y'all were able to bring her home. You were able to have your family with her, your kiddos got to be with their sister. What was what do you feel like the kids experience with this? Did any of the kids ever share just like their perception of what happened with you, or
Yeah. So Mary, I guess Miriam was kind of confused because I thought, she's 5 at the time, right? But like she was still confused because she said, I didn't think she was actually going to die. Like she came home, right? And so she was a little bit taken aback. What was interesting is that all my kids, because Mariana died in my arms, like if she had been, it was around 4 in the afternoon. I remember she had like a little like breathing episode around 2. Like there's a couple times where she kind of looked like she'd stopped breathing, she'd turn a little purple. And so that was kind of like, okay, I think this is going to happen soon. And fortunately, we had a hospice nurse there who was able to like be like, yes, because I'm like, I can't tell, I don't know. And she was in my arms and she passed. And when the nurse confirmed it, thanks be to God, God gave me the grace because all my kids were crying and I was not. Like, I was just like, she's with the Lord. Like, I was sincerely rejoicing. Like, I was like, this is it. And like everybody around me is falling apart. And I was so
and you're
yeah.
like, this is amazing.
Right? I'm like, is there something wrong with me? Like what? Like my
No,
baby,
not at all.
And so
There's
yeah, I don't know. But nothing particularly strikes me other than they were, just obviously sad. They lost their sister. And I think what's crazy is because of what I was feeling, it's like I took for granted that their little souls were just like, they just lost their sister, right? Like, yeah, like I only now talking to Miriam as she looks back, because I don't think she could have told me at the time. She just says, yeah, no, I was very confused. Like I didn't know why. I thought, like, I know you had told me that she was or she was probably not gonna live, but then I saw her and she came home, so I didn't understand why she couldn't. But other than that, no, there's nothing in particular that I remember. I was just grateful that they all got to hold her and love on her and just see, yeah, the miracle, the gift, and the like my husband said, the frailty of like the Lord gives and the Lord takes. Blessed be His name. Like that
Blessed
was
be the Lord.
for
Yeah.
sure. Blessed be the
Mhm.
Lord. We got to have her, and we don't know why for so short, but fortunately, this is not this is not the end. Not
Yeah,
even
this
close,
is not
right?
the end. Yeah, amen. And that's funny you say that, Veronica, because I was literally in the Liturgy of the Hours this morning. Job, the Lord
Yeah.
gives and the Lord takes away. Blessed be the Lord. But I just, Veronica, I just have to tell you this because, being your friends these past few years, just the witness that you and Enrique are to your kids and to your family and to your community. And I can't imagine that they can take this experience of losing their sister and seeing how you and Enrique both handle it and dealt with it and the joy that you had in that moment to like really communicate to them in without words that like heaven is real and we are excited to go and your sister is already there waiting for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so whether they like perceive that or not, in their memory they'll have that like excitement that you had, and then understanding like that's why mom was so excited because heaven is real and this is not the end.
Yeah.
with that conviction, right? Because like sometimes I feel like intellectually we can say, oh yeah, like heaven is real and all that, and like and she's in heaven now, but you guys are just like this is real. There's so much conviction in your voice when you guys say that she's a saint and that she's the Lord now. So I find that very beautiful.
Yeah, it's thanks be to God. Yeah, it's he like I said, he really yeah, he really was there. He was really faithful. I think that was the big I I didn't mention this earlier, but probably a couple months prior to becoming pregnant. I don't know why. I don't know what because it was so long ago, but I do remember specifically in prayer asking the Lord, please send me something that is going to help me to grow in my trust in you. Right. And so that's why the shrine was huge because I was getting into the Divine Mercy devotion, help me to grow my trust. And so when this happened, it was like a slap in the face. Like, look what you asked for.
Be careful
Let's
what
see
you
if I'm
pray
gonna
for.
do exactly right.
The
And
Lord
I'm
will
like,
grant you.
okay, Lord, this is it's about to go down, right? And so at the end at her mass, one of the options, the priest gives you the readings that you can do, and we chose, I guess it's what Matthew. You think I know the verse, but it's like, come to me, all who are
Weary and heavy
weary,
laden.
Yeah,
will give you rest.
yeah, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And I never understood that because I'm like, Lord, like, no, I know you say that, but it's not really easy. Like you carried, like that was difficult, So I'm like, I can't follow you there. But then it's kind of like after going through it, it's like he showed me, no, it is. Like it really is. He's carrying it all. So like when he asks us to carry the cross, it's not like he throws this cross at you and it's like, okay, figure it out. No, he's carrying the load. And so if you let him, it's not that it's not going to be painful, it's not going to be difficult, you're still going to struggle, but it's a whole lot easier when he carries it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? He is
Yes.
gentle. He is. I'm meek and humble of heart. Learn of me, because he is very, very gentle. And so I think that's what he wanted to show me is like, trust me, like when you suffer, you're not doing this alone. And he gives you those consolations in the midst of the, at least he did for me, right? I can say that, attest to that. He really did in the midst of it throw those consolations and show that he was there the whole time. Yeah.
Amen. I can relate to that for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, it's like you said, Mary, like in your episode, the Lord is who he says he is. Like I find that very beautiful.
Yeah, he is faithful beyond measure. It really is mind blowing.
Okay, guys. So, well, thank you guys for joining us. This was such a gift to have you guys on the podcast, and we really appreciate you guys sharing all this with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Thank
Thank
you, Veronica. Thank you, Enrique. And thank you guys for joining us for this episode of the Memento Mori Fight Club. Remember, nothing is wasted.
Keep fighting the good fight.